Welcome back. It's another edition of Taking the Reins, the preview show. And wow, hasn't this date snuck upon us really quickly? It's Lomran's King's Plate Day, and we are going to take you through some action-packed group races on the card. And of course, don't forget, 1 million rand pick six carryover with a 6 million rand pool expected. I have a fantastic group of guests with me. We'll start immediately to my right, none other than the legendary Piere striker Strydom. Good to have you in town, Piere. How have you felt the Cape racing season so far?
Yeah, really enjoying it. Been spending a couple of weeks here, and I should have done it way earlier.
Good. Well, you're as young as you've ever been, so hopefully you've got a few more fantastic rides in you. Jono, Snaith, good to have you back after last time, and Snaith Racing once again, chock-a-block card of runners, and it's a fantastic week for you guys, and you've obviously got some of your major equine superstars stepping out on the weekend.
Yeah, you know, Justin, we always look forward to this Premier Day. It's a highlight of our sort of Cape racing calendar. And just looking around the course at the moment, it's going to be an absolute vibe here on Saturday. And if you haven't got your ticket, I would recommend getting them very quickly, because I've heard they're very close to being sold out. Yeah, absolutely. The hospitality suites tickets are close to maxed out. Michelle, thank you for joining us. Obviously, you've had a couple of high-pressure days like these days with your big horse that's obviously very close to your heart, and we will touch on him a bit later on. Thank you very much for joining us. And how do you find this day as a trainer? I mean, obviously these are the big days, what you look forward to, and a bit of nerve setting for the big race.
Yeah, you know, I've spent the first part of these race meetings as a bystander, and now I've stepped up to the plate, and it's always great to have a horse in these competitive races. And yeah, looking at the course, you know, it's setting the picture for a perfect day's racing. Great horses, great fashion, great people, and I think we're going to have a lot to look forward to.
Fantastic. Well, let's dive straight into the headline Juvenile event. This is the Trippy Stakes Race 3 over 1,000 meters. It's the first leg of the inaugural Summer Juvenile Series. It's been run for 350,000 rand, and we have seen an absolute resurgence of the juvenile population in terms of race numbers and race figures over the last 2 months. And the Summer Juvenile Series has played a big role in that, and we have an exceptionally competitive field. Could be a feature race any day of the week. Let's dive straight into the rerun. We have Speeding Bullet here in the Commonwealth Cup, which was run on Hollywoodbets Day. The reason we've gone with this rerun is because we're seeing a lot of horses here. Jono, we'll dive straight into you. You've got William West. We see him in the red and white up on the inside, chasing down Speeding Bullet. On the outside is Glenn Cotson's Chestnut Filly Golden Tatiana, who's also in this race and pretty well weighted. Captain Arrow for the Bass is also down the inside. What do you make of this race? And most importantly, just give us a little update on the juveniles coming out of your stable.
Justin, you know, the Speeding Bullet, Pierre's riding him next to us, yeah, and you know, he's gone up in the weights here, so you know, you got to think that these horses behind him, and this was a blanket finish, are going to have the measure with that little weight advantage. So he's going to have to up his game a bit. I see there's been a lot of support. I said 3-1 into 16-10 for Give Me Lightning, and I think his first run was super impressive. And I think the extra sort of 100 meters will make the world of difference. He was hopelessly green, and I think even though he's a winner and he gets the extra weight, I think he's going to have, you know, he's going to be a huge runner here. The horse I do like, and I see sitting at 20-1, Vit Blitz, I think is good value each way. I don't think she should be 20-1, and I'm sure she'll shorten come the day.
Fantastic. Michelle, what have you made of the juvenile racing so far?
Yeah, you know, we've had to do a bit more homework this year with fuller fields in the juvenile stakes, but having mentioned to Jonathan earlier, I do like the little grey filly Vit Blitz, you know, come in with a nice weight on her back. And these fillies are precocious at this time of the year. Obviously, you can't look past a horse like Speeding Bullet, who I would fancy on the cold side. But for me, it would be that, and then I'd also have a look at Golden Tatiana, who finished a good flying up third in the previous race.
Fantastic. Piere, you obviously on Speeding Bullet there. That horse in Marsh Shirtliff's colours, Pompey Warning, was flying up for second there and got unfortunately disqualified with the lead bag incident that was unfortunately not applied to the saddle. That's got to be a big danger as well. That one will be flashing home.
I'm sure, but now it's going to probably have a lead back on. So, well, like Jonathan said it 100% correctly, it's a turnover in weight. It was Speeding Bullet's second run, so the other horses' first runs. So they're probably going to make more improvement. I'm going to go with Give Me Lightning. He's got the form. He's been backed. It's a horse to beat, but Jonathan's got more info on these yards horses.
Yeah, and obviously Andrew Fortune's bringing this raider from Johannesburg, Ripple Effect. The half-foal 2-year-olds can be quite nippy and forward as well, and you know they can be quite tough and speedy. So you've got to give a slight chance to that horse as well.
Yeah, but I think it helps to have a bit of experience at Kenilworth. It can be a little bit undulating. In fact, one of my fillies that I actually own a share with my wife, Sean Terry, won 3 weeks ago, and she gave me quite a good feel. So I think they might be up to the Cape Town horses.
Fantastic. Well, that's very good. It's always interesting to see and compare the lines of form within the provinces. And the Raiders have obviously done, Jono, fantastically well over the last few months, probably a bit surprisingly well. I think it's been more the Durban guys, though, that have got off to a quick start, although Sean Terry did train 1 or 2 winners. But they've definitely held their own so far.
I think they've done tremendously well, and I think there's always been this perception that it's almost too strong to race in the Cape, and it's shown that that's not the case. And I must commend the trainers for taking up the initiative and coming down. And, you know, to look at these fields, especially with the juvenile race, from where we were a year ago, I think we cancelled the first juvenile race, and they were averaging 6 to 8 runners a race max. And we're now eliminating juveniles, which is amazing. And it's also good for the owner, first-time owner, get in, get a return, you get the 100,000 Rand BSA bonus. It's fantastic for the game to get these horses in early, get the horses racing early, and it's more fun for the owners. They don't have to wait a year and a half to see a horse run. So well done to Cape Racing for coming up with the Race Cape initiative. It's
definitely been something to look at, and I think when you see the quality of the Strippy Stakes, hopefully it's a race we can build up into a listed event as the years go on. And it must be said, across the card here today, we have 27 visiting runners, and we only had 26 visitors in the Cape the whole of last season. So it really has added an extra dimension, and thank you to those rating trainers who are just upping the competition and the integrity of the racing in the Western Cape. Let's move on to the next. It's race 4, the inaugural running of the Franschhoek Motor Museum Winchester Sprint Cup. 5 furlong, the minimum trip, and this is obviously a fantastic prelude and preparation race into the Cape Flying Championship, which we will see on WSB Met Day. Once again, a bumper field of sprinters, some real hard-knocking, quick 5 furlong specialists here. And we are going to jump straight into the rerun with the horse we are bringing up here is number 8, We're Jamming. Obviously, dropping down and trip has got to be a concern. But, Jono, let's jump straight into this rerun. Obviously, there's a lot of horses in this race which renew rivalry here, which is why we've gone with this rerun. Resonators here, We're Jamming is here, of course. Barcelona further down the card, who does a lot of good work late. What do you feel your horse here dropping in trip? Obviously, looking at his running style, where he's coming from here, it's probably not going to suit him down to a 5, is it?
No, and he has been fitted with blinkers, so that could help. But a lot of these horses, you know, that drop in trip, you know, you hope their class will prevail. And I think it's going to be tricky for him. He's never won a 5 furlongs, which actually says a lot. I know Richard will get him into the race a lot earlier than normal, so that will help. On form, he's got to be a serious contender. When I initially looked at the nominations for this race, I saw Trumpy was in with 50 kilos, and I thought that was probably the best bet on the card. But subsequently, you would have noticed he's a 3.5 kilogram overweight, and that kind of turns the weight around completely. Yeah. So it really has opened up this race for me. I think there's a lot of horses with chances. Rio Karari, if he returns to his best, I know Justin quietly fancies him. He's sitting at 10-1. He's got to be a major runner. And there's a couple of horses, Mike de Kock's filly, who ran second.
Piere, yes, very fast filly from
Princess Carla form line, fantastic. That's got it. It's also sitting at 10-1. I think there is a chance, because a lot of these horses are specialist sort of contenders and horses coming back in trip, it could throw an upset. But I know both these runners are coming to the course fit and well. He's pretty confident with both, but they're not, you know, Rio Karari hasn't been firing at his best, and We're Jamming's probably a horse looking for a mile.
Yeah.
And we try to run him over 5 furlongs. So it's a tricky race for me.
Piere, you're riding Rio Karari, obviously, who's been top-level sprinter, best sprinter in the country when he's at his absolute best. He's obviously coming back from a bit of an issue that he had, but his second-up form is very good. 5 of his 6 runs second after rest, he's been in the first 2. So he is a horse who performs well second up. What have you made of his comeback? Obviously, last time a bit hard to gauge. He never really got firing in the race.
Well, he was finished way behind, but Richard Free told me that they've been battling to get him 100% fit. So obviously that run would have helped a lot. I would have liked him to have finished closer. And Richard told me as well, the 1,000 meter, he thinks 1,200 would be more suited to him. But he's the best handicap horse in the race, and this is not a handicap, so he's well weighted. And if he produces his best form, I can't see why he can't run into the money.
Do you give the fillies a chance? We've got Bella Chica with Andrew Fortune, obviously another very quick 5-furlong filly, just like Mark de Cock's also you touched on. And we know fillies get that allowance in these races, which does tend to help them from time to time.
Well, she's well handicapped with Ifika. I know they are fillies, but they're obviously getting the weight probably allowance. But if they are the best handicapped horses in the races, I would think they are the two major horses to beat.
The major dangers. Michelle, what do you make of this race? The sprint racing has been very competitive this season. I mean, there were 20 runners in the Cape Merchants. Your star horse started in the Bantry Bay Stakes, which had a lot of these horses running in the race as well. What do you make of this?
You know what, I think a horse like Rio Karari, it is his second run after a race, but he's proven he can do it. To me, he's the class horse in the race, and I think that he will prevail in a field like this. And, you know, you can't... Probably a horse that... A darker side is a horse like Isivungu Vungu. I think you can't look past that. And, yeah, I'd have to go with the two fillies then as well. Probably leaning a little bit more towards Ipika over Bella Chica. But they haven't put a foot wrong. And, yeah, it's a competitive little field, and we're looking at the stalwart sprinters that have gone slightly off form, but when you come to days like this, the trainers know how to get them spot on, and yeah, I'd have to say I'm in Rio Karari's camp. He's a stalwart sprinter, and his class will prevail here.
Give us a bit of insight, obviously with number 6 Trompy. I mean, he's come into the race with 50. I believe they had a jockey lined up and jumped ship last moment, so obviously we're stuck for options, and they've elected to go with a +3.5. I can't ever remember seeing so much overweight being put up. When with all due respect, you can maybe book a inexperienced appy who doesn't claim in this race and get the 50, or you go for a grant with 3.5 over. It's a tough decision to make.
It's very tough, and I mean, goodness, I think we all got a bit of a shock when we opened up the race card, but I mean, Vaughan's a seasoned campaigner, he knows exactly what he's doing. And yeah, I think, you know, each to their own when it comes to decisions like this. I would be on a little bit of a nervous front with it. But, you know, he is a decent horse, and I don't think Vaughan would have made the decision if he wasn't in with the big shots.
Piere, this also has got an interesting angle to it. Christophe Soumillon is riding Isivungu Vungu in this race, and I'm sure you would have seen the bit of controversy of why he's had a bit of time off with his incident race riding. What did you make of that whole scenario?
Yeah, I'm going to stay away from him.
I'm sure.
I mean, we know he's a top rider. Apparently, this is his first meeting back after 2 months, so he's probably going to be a little bit rusty, but he's a quality jockey, and he'll overcome all those obstacles very easily.
He's one of the very best. I mean, he's won the big races all over the world, and in fact, I'm pretty sure it was the horse Oracy who ended up as a stallion. He won the Dingons on him, a good couple of years ago when it was one of those jockeys internationals and he was in town. So he has won a group race in South Africa, and it's just fantastic that we as a racing industry can attract riders of this level. So very, very good. And obviously, Jono, we were chatting off air, other than just having Christoph here, we've got the first race, the Okapi's Ladies International, which is a concept molded around the Magnolia Cup, the ladies race, which is run in England. A lot of behind the scenes work has gone into that, and I know the lady jockeys are all very well prepared, and a lot of excitement around that event.
Yeah, just on Christopher, I think it's fantastic having a rider of his ability in South Africa. He's a tremendous rider, probably top handful in the world. And this horse, interesting, he has been backed 10-1 into 6-1, so I think he's got his followers. And I must say, on the ladies' race, you know, this morning I've never seen sort of our training centre so full with a buzz. All the ladies came down, the media were there, and it was just fantastic. We even had Grant there for a change, you know. We know why he was there, but it was just a fantastic initiative, and I think hats off to Gaynor Rupert. You know, she picked it up at the Goodwood Cup. Goodwood Festival, and I think this is year 1, and to get 12 licensed riders over the line, I must applaud Craig Deploy. He's done a fantastic job, put a lot of effort into it, and I think it's going to be a tremendous event, and I'm very excited where it will go from here, and I think this is year 1, and I think it's only onwards and upwards from here.
Fantastic. Well, let's dive into the last group race of this segment before we get on to the main event and others after this. We've got at 2:25 is the Group 2 Cartier Scepter Stakes, 1,200 meter, 6 furlong fillies sprint event, and historically this race throws up many a fantastic horse. And let's go straight into our rerun, because we have a top filly in her own right who's come out as a 5-year-old this season. Her name is Princess Keller, and Michelle, let's go to you here in this rerun. Obviously, she's come here first up in 1,000 meters against a couple of 1,000-meter sprinters. We see Pico running earlier. There she is, 2 lengths clear with Bella Chicken behind. Needed the run. The report coming from the yard, hadn't run in a while, 5 furlong. Look at her flying over the top. What did you make of her comeback?
My goodness, it was certainly impressive, and yeah, she flew at the end. And having spoken to Gavin over the last couple of days, he's feeling very optimistic. She is the class filly in the race, and but for me, there's another filly that's probably overdue for a win, and it's a filly like Desert Miracle.
Yeah.
So to me, she would be my pick purely because she's also a decent filly. She is overdue. Take nothing away from Princess Keller, but that would be my personal favourite for the race.
She's got an outside draw. Jono, we were talking a few weeks ago, and we'll chat to Piere about this factor as well. We were expecting a thumping wind on Saturday, and although we've seen, when conditions are pretty fair, horses from inside, middle to outside, they win all over the straight. It's when that headwind pumps, where guys are looking for a bit of cover on the outside, that the outer draws do tend to favour. And obviously, we've got Desert Miracle out at 15, Princess Keller out at 13, who's probably not going to be up with the lead. She's going to be a couple of lengths off and doing her best work late. How do you see your runners in this race and the rest of the field? It's obviously very competitive.
Yeah, I agree with you, Justin. I think that the wind is a huge factor to take into account when you're playing your permutations. It suits the riders like Piere, Strydom, the guys that come off. I remember Carnesius back in the day was an absolute master. Sat on the outside at a windbreaker the whole way, and the last furlong he would just come through and on the outside and breeze past. And I think that's going to be the case on Saturday. So, a filly like Princess Keller, I think she's thrown in here. And, Sean Terry has trained some amazing sprinting fillies like Carry On Alice. And I think she's improved this filly. And I was super impressed with a run over 5 furlongs last time, and over 6 furlongs, it's really going to be a struggle for these fillies to beat her. And a horse like that's unexposed to these older horses like Ciao Bella, I think she's a much better filly over the sprints, and I think she could cause an upset if she was good enough, but it's going to be a hard nut to crack.
Yeah, and she's drawn 2 up the inside. Piere, we were talking there when we mentioned you. Insight with the wind riding here at Hollywoodbets Kenilworth. How do you find it?
Well, if the wind, if it's a headwind from inside to the outside, obviously you're looking for cover, so you want to be rather on the outside. The problem comes when we all go to the outside, and some of us will get runs, some of us won't, and that's where the luck in running comes into it. But if everything works out in your favour, you can have a horse that's got a lesser chance, track the right horse right through to the end, and you can win it. I must just say, Princess Keller, I worked her a couple of days ago. She's looking unbelievably well. When I worked her, I didn't think she could win 1,000 meters, and the fact that she won 1,000 like that, and now it's at 1,200, and this is not a handicap. It's set weights. She's well handicapped to win this race, and for her, the extra 200 meters is going to be right up her alley. I think she's a very hard horse to beat.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. She's 9 pounds superior to Ciao Bella and the rest, and got a 4-pound head start on Desert Miracle at the weight. So very, very well weighted, as you touched on. I think she's got to be the right horse. You're riding Quintus Larcher, inside draw as well. She did come to Form 1 last time. Do you think she's got the class here? Probably would prefer better weight conditions to be receiving a little bit more weight than she is from this group.
Well, she won the last start, but if it was a handicap, obviously would have received a lot of weight from Princess Keller. So she's going to have to improve to be in the money. Maybe Jono can tell us if she's improved or not.
Give me that. Talented on her day.
Won the race last year.
There we go.
So she's coming to form at the right time, had a disastrous KwaZulu-Natal season, hated it up there. And if you watch her last run, she was hopelessly outpaced, flew home, and she's, with Grant up could surprise. And the same with Pierce filly, she's in great form, doing particularly well. And it's one of those races, for me, you either bank a Princess Keller or you go 1 and 2 horses, which would be maybe Child Bella. But if you go further than that, you're looking for 10, 11 horses in this field. It could be an upset.
I'm going to quickly interrupt you.
Please.
Time for Orchids. Galloped a couple of months ago in Johannesburg, and she came out the stalls in the gallop so quickly. She felt like a sprinter. Obviously, we're trying to go over to try and win that $7.5 million.
The Gold Rush, yes.
Yeah. And I think it's maybe too far for her. She's a quality filly, and she could definitely be a nice place getter. So good value. I think she's 20 to 1.
I think you've pulled a good one there, because if you look at her form, I mean, on debut she beat Flower Bomb. Flower Bomb is a very handy sprinter of Cornet species. She's done very, very well. Third in the group race at Greyville, and only second behind Ciao Bella in the 1400 that day. And I remember she moved up through the pack and just didn't quite
and she had
have the stamina.
Yes. Cornet to drop her like way back to try and become a draw.
Absolutely, so could be looking for 1200 meters. Jono, we are going to touch on 1 or 2 other races while we've got a little bit of spare time before we go into the next segment. Let's talk about the Stayers race right at the back. Obviously, it doesn't form part of the Pick 6 carryover, but we do like to play a quartet in the last race, and it's quite a big field for this Chairman's Cup, Merchants Along Chairman's Cup, 2500 meter Group 3 event. Your horses have gone through the summer season quite nicely, those under the radar Stayers. How are your horses going into this event?
You know, if you look at a horse like One Way Traffic, he won the July Consolation, and he won it super impressively. He went a little off on Justin, and his first run back at Kenilworth, he was just not in the race. I think the rider actually pulled him out. And if the punter's out there, go and watch his last run with Bernard Fader, where he got bulked up the inside for a run. I know Bernard got off and he was desperately looking for this ride. I was quite upset that Richard opted to ride One Way Traffic, but he's a class act. I think he's better than anything in this field. Even though he's carrying 60 kilos and I think he's drawn 15, I think I was astounded when he was open 10 to 1. And for the punters out there, I think this is probably our best bet on the card. And I see he has shortened already into 6 to 1. And I'm sure he'll start a lot shorter than that. And his danger for me would be the stable companion Navy Strength, 52 kilos. Since he's been fitted with a tongue tie 3 runs ago, he's been a different horse. And if I would say a 10 to 1 One Way Traffic, or now 6 to 1, and cover with Navy Strength. But I think One Way Traffic is a huge runner.
Fantastic, great summary of that. Thank you very much. Piere, you're riding Zilzal, Johannesburg Stayers. They're a fit bunch. They're loaded with stamina. They have very good history in this race. He ran pretty well in the Summer Cup last time, and obviously prefers this type of trip. Have you sat on him before?
Yes, I've actually won on him probably 2 years ago. First time he went to the front, and I galloped him here about a week ago, and he looks very good. Seems fit, and I don't think the 2,500 will be a problem. I think he'll stay. So I think he could be the danger to the fancied runners.
Fantastic. Well, that could be another big runner on the day for Sean Terry after he saddles Princess Kala. Well, that's the end of our first segment. We are going to be back with the main event after this. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now we're heading up to the main events, and just before we get there, we've got a very, very competitive running of the Anthony Rupert Wine Premier Trophy Group 2 this season. It'll be jumping at 3 o'clock as race 6, 1800 meter event, and a lot of these horses looking to prep into the WSB Met later on in the season. Let's jump straight in the rerun. Michelle, we've gone with the Greenpoint Stakes to watch here because a very, very good run by a horse called Universal. He runs a smashing good race, and there are a couple of horses over here which are in this race as well, Pomp and Power, etc., etc. We will talk to Jono about those horses later on and how they're going. What did you make of this horse? He's obviously had a bit of an injury, and he's come from a bit of a layoff, and there he is in the pink. He runs on Trip of Fortune as a runaway winner, and Universal stays on really well, and he just gets the better of your horse there in third. He looks to be coming along the right way. Third run after a long rest, and he's about favourite, just about a weakish favourite in this event. What do you make of him and the rest of the runners?
Yeah, I think Adam's got into this race perfectly. He's had a great prep run. Judging from that race, we can all see that he's going to head into this race a firm favourite, I believe. And obviously, main aim would be the World Sports Betting Mets. And he's a horse that we see in the mornings. He's an eye-catching horse. He looks very well at the track. And I think if anything had to challenge him on the day, it would be a horse like Do It Again. Take nothing away from Universal. I think he'll be a big runner.
Absolutely. What about this horse of Vaughan Marshall's drawn one with Cornea, Rascallion? I mean, he's been a horse he's been a consistent high-level performer now for a good few years. Also had a bit of a break from the summer season last year. Started well when fourth behind Jet Dark in the Cape Mile, and then his second run up, which was in that last race where we just watched, not so great, beaten 3.5 lengths unplaced, but at his best, I mean, he's got to be able to have a chance in a race like this. He's well weighted. Only Do It Again comes into the race better weighted than him. What do you make of his chances?
Yes, Justin, he's a horse that's always competed against some of the finest horses in the country, and he's just always been that length and a half, 2 kilos off them. Lengths off them. Obviously there has been 1 or 2 niggles in his career, but this horse manages to come back and find his way right up there in the finishing line with some top horses. He's not a horse that you can overlook, and very eye-catching horse, and he's probably one that you're not going to be able to leave out of your trifectas and quartets.
Absolutely. Piere, let's jump straight to you, because you're riding an old friend that you were reunited with last time. Pulled off a bit of a shock win and damaged a few pick sixes in that 1800 last time. He looked good. Must have felt good.
Felt very good. He was drawn well last time. Flew the gates at the run of the race, and he finished off the race really well. Got a huge penalty for that.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect him because it's not a handicap, but he's out at the weight, so I think it's going to be tough for him. But he's a trier, and if the race works out well for him, I think we can run in the money.
Endangers a horse like Do It Again. I mean, he's got the class. He's been around.
He looks like he's the best handicap horse in the race, but I'm leaning towards Rascallion. Third run from a layoff. He's drawn 1, also well handicapped. I think if he finds his best form, last time he was drawn wide, so it'd be dropped far back. So I think this race is going to work out for him.
Not that it's got any relevance, Jono, to what will happen this year, but Do It Again lined up in this race last year. I speak from my pocket. I think he was a banker in many multiples and pick sixes. He looked like he couldn't miss, and he ran probably the worst race of his in the last couple of seasons anyway. In saying that, he was only beaten 2.5 lengths by your horse that won that day, Hootspruit, but he didn't quite run the race we expected, and then he ran a good one in the Met next time out. He's only beaten 2 lengths. How's his prep going coming into this race?
I think Justin's got him spot on this season, as opposed to, he's a horse that does better in KwaZulu-Natal. But this year, I think he's really enjoyed his Cape Town sort of holiday, we call it. And Bernard galloped him probably about 2 weeks ago, and he jumped off and said, this is a serious Met runner. And at the weights here, he's absolutely slung in. And I think 6-1 is very good each way value. So, you're getting 12 to 10 a place. I think it's a great bet. And obviously Universal, there's been a flood of money for him. And you've got to respect him. He's got some great earlier form, ran second in the Derby. And he'll stay this trip. And I think he's got to be a contender. Of Justin's other runners, Warrior's coming back to form. Pierre's horse Nexus, and you can never leave a horse like that out. Rascallion, I do agree with. I think he's a class horse. I mean, if he's sound and comes back to his best, he could win a race like this. So I think it's for me, it's like, I like to do it again strongly in this race at the weights. But if you look past him, I think it's another race that could really throw an upset, and you might have to go wide in a pick 6, yeah.
What have you made of your horse Pomp and Power? Obviously, I mean, he's right up there with all the horses we've been mentioning on ability, but he's found it quite tricky coming back as a 4-year-old this year. He's put in some indifferent performances, and he's quite strong in the race and battling to settle. Have you has Justin managed to find any type of little mental issues, or what have you made of him so far?
That's an interesting question, Justin, because he actually has settled the horse down completely. But, you often find, with working with horses like that, and you almost take the fire out of them in terms of, sometimes that's why they run well, it's because really fired up when they come to the track. And he settled down beautifully. We got him under control. Interestingly, Richard chose to ride Pomp and Power above any other horse, bar Do It Again, because Bernard riding him in the World Sports Betting Met. But the fact that Richard's chosen this horse has impressed him in work over the last sort of 2-3 weeks. And I think he's coming back to his best. His last run I thought was excellent. He went to the front and it looked like 400, there's no way this was going to stay out there. And he fought on and fought on. And that was his second run after a long break. I think he's going to bounce back to his best. And he's not a horse I would leave out any bets.
And your horse, Silver Host, probably the best stayer in the country last year, obviously had an injury. He's now having a comeback. A little bit short of his best, especially in this company, but for the stays race on WSB Met Day and those races afterwards, is that where you're looking to go? How's he come along?
Totally. This is just a prep run. The most important thing is he comes back sound. He's had tendon issues previously, and that's step one for us. That's why he's probably not at his peak fitness. And after this race, then Justin will increase to 3 weeks into, as you say, the stays race on Met Day. So he's probably not going to be too competitive over this trip. It's on the short side for him. And he's a horse that I would definitely, if you see him accepted on Met Day, he's going to be a major runner.
Fantastic. Well, that's a good summary of that event for us. Let's move right into the Cartier Paddock Stakes, and this is an absolute cracking race. Hasn't attracted the biggest of fields. We've got to wait for age Group 1 event here for the fillies and mares, but it is absolutely loaded in quality, and we are going to jump straight into a rerun here of Make It Snappy winning the Summer Bowl. Now, Michelle, when this race was run, we didn't know that we were looking at the future Fillies Guineas winner, but she went to the front, dictated, got away from them, did really, really well. And she renews rivalry here with Marina in the slack colours up on the inside. And I mean, this was a super impressive win from a very lightly raced filly. She's obviously taking on a superstar here, and she's got to try and fend off Marina again. 1,800 metre trip. What do you make of her chances here in this filly in general?
You know what, judging by this win and her last win in the Fillies Guineas, she's a filly that's on the up. I don't think distance is going to be a problem at all for her. And, you know, Brett's a seasoned companion. He knows exactly what kind of horses he's working with. And, you know, we were discussing the form this morning, and I think this filly's got what it takes to you know, really come out and show them what she's got. You can never look past Captain's Ransom. She is the people's darling. Obviously, everyone is worried about the 18, but with a small field like this, you know, sometimes it's not really a worry. But yeah, I like a filly like Make It Snappy. Should be the one for me.
Jono, let's touch on Captain's Ransom. Obviously, the champion quality is not in doubt. Obvious question mark is the 1800. She did win this exact race last year, so it's not like there isn't proof that she just about gets enough of the trip to win the race if it works out well enough for her. It is a small field. If all things being equal for her, she's going to be able to put in enough of a blow in at the end to make the final photo. If there's a chink in the armour, it's the distance, obviously. How has her preparation been? I know she did have that one particular event that she was scheduled for a prep run, which got scrapped because there weren't enough final acceptors. Has that hindered her? You've managed to bring her to the course for a big gallop. How was she going?
No, her gallop here was off the charts. You know, there's no doubt this filly is at her best. She has improved. I think she's going to take a power of beating here. You know, if you look at Make It Snappy, she is, you know, when she beat the older horse, there was a 10, Marina, there was a 10 kilogram weight difference. I think there's sort of 4 now, or is it 6?
Six.
So, you know, that's got to level them out. And I do think Marina would probably be the main danger. She ran a cracker in this race last year. I know the connections are always bullish about her, and I think they're quite bullish about her in the Met. So she's a class filly, Marina, and I would definitely make her the danger. But, you know, for me, Captain's Ransom, she's an absolute superstar. And those horses win over any trip. You can bring her here over 1,000 meters, she'll win. You bring her over 1,800 meters, she'll win. She'll get the job done, and for me, she's a banker.
Well, there we go. A lot of confidence from Jono. Striker, let's talk to you about the 2 Joburg horses. One of them you're riding, Reins in Holland. Now, she was obviously superstar 3-year-old. She hasn't quite come back the same 4-year-old this season. two in different type of runs, but she's drawn one here in a small field. And have you managed to sit on her in preparation for this?
Yeah, I've worked her a couple of times, and she's working very nice. She had a little up on the throat.
Yeah.
Little breathing issues that I had to sort out. Every time I've worked her, I haven't actually heard an issue, and I think on a best day she could be a danger. We've taken the blinkers off, tongue ties off. She's going to run with nothing on, and let's just see how she runs and improves on this race. And I think she's definitely got the ability to fight out the finish.
But she's definitely got the stamina. And speaking of stamina, number 7, Sparkling Waters, the Hollywoodbets Durban July winner. This is a horse who ran a little bit indifferent in the Summer Cup, a bit disappointing, because her run prior to that in the Victory Moon behind litigation was a very good one. But let's not forget, in her July win, she absolutely hammered them. And she put 3 lengths between her and Jet Dark. She definitely does have the ability to threaten here at her best.
She won in July. I mean, she has to be a runner. If you look at her form in the Summer Cup, she definitely ran below her form. So on her best form, she's got to be a runner. She's probably the main danger to Captain Ransom. I don't know. If everything goes well, I think Captain Ransom will have to pick up her feet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sparkling Water is the second best weighted horse, and we see in the computer form that she was reported not striding out after the Summer Cup in the staff's report. So maybe a little nick in running or whatever the case was, and you put a line through that, and at her absolute best, she has got to be a runner. And she did win the Stayers race on Met Day last year. So she has travelled to Johannesburg and pulled off a victory, which is obviously very, very important. Now, let's not waste any time and let's dive straight into the main event. It's the race that we are all waiting for, and what a fantastic way to start horse racing for 2023. It's race 8, the Lormerans King's Plate Group 1 event being run for 2 million rand this year, up on the 1.5 from last year. And let's not waste any time. Let's dive straight into those reruns. We're going to bring you Charles Dickens winning the Hollywoodbets Guineas, and Piere, let's get your opinion here, because you've been watching this horse and everything going on, all the hype around him. Give us some insight into the ride here. I mean, a novice might say that he pulled the trigger a little bit early because he had so much ground to make up, and the horse just fired so quickly, hit the front probably a little bit too far, but he was just so good that he's absolutely put them to bed.
Yeah, I was actually tracking him. I was about 2 lengths behind Elder around the bend. The pace was on. And I was still thinking maybe I'll get closer and closer as we hit the straight. And next minute Elder went out. Obviously, he didn't want to get caught behind a whole bunch of horses. When you've got a horse underneath you, you'd rather pull out and give yourself a clear run. So obviously, that took a little bit of effort. But the way all of a sudden he just picked it up, it was like amazing. For a second you think, okay, you're not far behind, and next minute you out the race because that guy's just picked it up so quickly. I rode against Horse Chestnut, and I thought he's like the absolute machine. He was the best horse I've ever seen in South Africa or ridden against, and this horse has got to be the next. No, he's phenomenal. To pick it up as quickly as he does, unbelievable. It's
quite an interesting comparison, and obviously something that horsemen have been talking about now. Horse Chestnut was more of an on-speed type of horse, sitting in the first 2 or 3 handy position. Did you partner Jeff's horse that ran a couple of runner-up positions behind him in those days, Pablo Zita?
Pablo Zita, that was with Tony Millard in those days.
Okay.
Always set up Horse Chestnut's backside, and I thought today is the day I'm going to beat him, but Horse Chestnut would just change his legs, and he would 2-3 lengths within strides. He had the longest stride that I've ever ridden against. If he sat a normal distance behind a horse's heels, with Horse Chestnut you would clip his heels. It was almost a foot longer. And I think that long stride, it was just, he gave probably less strides than all the other horses. And then obviously he would find.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very difficult to beat him. Well, we couldn't beat him.
That's quite incredible. Well, it's obviously been debated at length, and I think a lot of people are comparing this horse to him and saying that if not, he is the best since him. And I mean, we must also remember Variety Club, who went to Hong Kong and smashed up Abel Friend we've had some super horses go out. So I think he's got to come out, Jono, and win races of this nature a good few times before we can put his name up with the elites. But in terms of the numbers, he's running some scary figures. I mean, he ran like a mid-130s when he took on the older horses when he carried 59. Then everyone asked him to do it at Group 1 level, and he delivered that knockout blow, beating Cousin Casey and a good few other handy horses. But what he has to do here in the main race is take on, with all due respect to Cousin Casey, who's a multiple Group 1 winning champion and at my command, they haven't stepped up against the older horses. And Charles Dickens has to lay down a marker against Jet Dark, who without a doubt has been the best middle distance smiling type of horse we've seen probably since Variety Club and that era of horses with Give Me the Green Light, which you guys also had. How is Jet Dark coming to this race? What do you make of it? You've been watching, obviously, Charles Dickens from the other side of the fence. What do you make of all this?
There's no doubt this is an exceptional horse. And if you look at the times, which are quite interesting, they both carried 60 kilos, being Jet Dark in the Limerick Queen's Plate last year. And if you look at the time that Charles Dickens ran in the Guineas last year as well, there was about Jet Dark was a second faster, well, actually more than a second faster, but taking into account that Charles Dickens had something in hand in the Guineas, which was remarkable, and now there's a 5 kilogram turnaround. That's the big change and swing. So it's going to be a monster task for the older horses to give a young horse like this 5 kilograms, and never mind level weights. I think they'd battle. So but you never know. In horse racing, there's a lot that can happen between now and then, and everything the horse has got to get to the race in perfect condition, and then the lack of the running. Is there going to be pace in the race? Justin has put a pacemaker in Speed Machine that to ensure that there's a fast pace in the race and a fair run result. But it's going to be, this horse is exceptional, and it's going to be a hard nut to crack. But I know if Jet Dark's coming for 3 in a row, he's not going to lie down. And I know, Justin and Richard are always confident no matter what. So it's a hell of a race. This is why people are in the game.
Yeah.
And to look at this field and to see this clash, and your Committee Ding coming last year as a Met winner, it's such an exciting race. So good for racing, and this is the pinnacle of the sport, and we're really looking forward to it, and just hope everyone has a fair run race, and may the best horse win.
Well, while we're talking about Jet Dark, let's dive into his rerun, because we saw him on his seasonal return in the Cape Mile, which is a race that was developed from a non-black type race into a pretty strong Group 3, and may not stop there, but there he is, just rolling on the outside in the pink cap, Jono, and he's won very well. He's beaten the hard knockers here, Rascallion, Silver Operator, Golden Ducat, etc., who is in this race with Christoph riding as well. And obviously the team very happy with this because he showed his well-being. He's won with 62, and he's done it showing good stamina at the end of the race. Obviously, you had him down for the WSB Green Point after that run, and he was taken out. Slight hiccup in his prep. Any worry there? Was something very minor? You've made up with it with a gallop at the course?
No, his preparation has actually been perfect, and I think Justin got going into him a lot earlier this year, with the King's Plate and the Met being his ultimate goal. He's never won the Met, and I think Justin would love this horse in terms of his stallion credentials to win the Met, and he's absolutely spot on. His gallop here was outstanding, and he's bringing a horse probably, although this is his third King's Plate, and he's never been better. And if you look at his win last year, was off the charts. He was far back in the race. He waltzed through the field, and I think he won by 2 lengths going away. So if he brings that sort of form to the races on Saturday, it's going to be one hell of a exciting race, and I think it's something that the public have been looking forward to for the last month. So super exciting, and I can't wait to it.
Absolutely. Well, Michelle, before we get to talk to you about your horse here, I mean, 3-year-olds have done pretty well in this race on the odd occasion that they run. I remember years ago when Give Me the Green Light and Variety Club ran, I think, first and second in the Guineas. The handicappers rated them 117 or 118, and I remember they were duly slated by all the professional punters and pundits, etc., only for the 2 horses to go and run on top of them in the Queen's Plate. Then they ran first and second, or whatever it was. Socrat won the Guineas for Mark de Kock, and then ran in this race, and he ran a good second. And they've done really, really well. So you've obviously been watching Charles Dickens as well in that crop, and He looks like a real superstar. And you've got your horse who, funny enough, hasn't won in a little while, but obviously he's running against the very best horses every single time he runs, and he's been just about there and thereabouts in his prep races for this. How happy are you with his condition going into this race compared to his preps in years gone by? How do you feel you have him?
Justin, obviously we've got a lot more owners to answer to now that he's been syndicated, and my feedback to them is that mentally this horse is at the place that I've wanted him to be last year. Having won the Mets, having won the July, it's been a great feat, but he's always been on that little bit of an immature side. And having come back to Cape Town after the Durban season, I looked at him and the pennies really dropped with this horse. Take nothing away from Charles Dickens. My goodness, he is absolutely incredible, and I think we're all going to have to dig down deep on Saturday. Jet Dark, he's always been a personal favourite of mine. I love seeing both Comet and Jet Dark down to the wire. They've done it on multiple occasions, and they've turned it around on each other, and that's it. I mean, we all work extremely hard to get our horses to a level of a race like this, and I think we'll all be sitting there on tender hooks and looking to see who the best horse will be. If we're going to talk about weights, I want to find out if Aldo's getting down to 55, most importantly. But no, it's a cracker of a race. Comet's in fine form, but let me tell you, it's competitive, and I look forward to the race on Saturday.
Absolutely. Piere, I'll dive in here with you, because as Michelle touched on there with Aldo wasting away. Now, I'm pretty sure at races the other day, he weighed in at about 56.6 or 8, somewhere around there. So it's only about 1.5 to 2 kilos to go from the Tuesday to the Saturday. Obviously, the difference being with Aldo is he never really has much to take off from. He's a pretty fit guy. You've had to waste away on a couple of occasions. If Aldo's been riding 58 to 59, having to get to 55, how difficult is that?
It's very difficult, because that last kilo, half a kilo to lose is what takes all the energy out of you, and you can't lose that last little bit. I mean, you've already taken so much off, but at least he's had time to do this gradually, and I just hope the poor guy's feeling strong enough on the day, because he's going to have to be on song, slightly bad draw, so a lot's got to go his way as well, and if he's not on song, well, it could affect the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we wish Aldo all the best, and we've noticed that he hasn't taken any rides after the main event, and I'm sure if he did, he would have been booked off them. But thank you, guys. It's been fantastic to have you discussing this, the Lormans Kings Plate Day. Piere, good to have you in the Cape. It's an absolute pleasure. Hopefully you can bag a win or two and enjoy the day. And Jono, good luck with the cavalry of runners you've got. And Michelle, your horse, new stallion on the block. Hopefully he's going to do all his syndicate and shareholders proud. It must be fun to have to give feedback to 50 new owners. But good luck to everybody here on the panel, and hopefully we can put on a great show for the racing public. And it is our premium asset of the Cape Summer season. It's Lormans Kings Plate Day. Enjoy the racing and enjoy the main event. It's going to be a bumper event.